Before I get into this, I just want to preface the video by saying, at the end of the day, this stuff really doesn't matter. I'm not really here to make combative, antagonistic videos about video games, and I'm just here as somebody who's confused about an IP that I really like. If you happen to disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. I'd love to discuss in the comments. And if you have differing opinions, feel free to spend your money wherever you want. I like to think I have the self-awareness to see that this is really an insignificant opinion to have. So to jump right into it, I really have come to feel that the Tales of series has got to be one of the worst managed JRPGs running today. If you aren't familiar with Tales of, it's a Bandai Namco JRPG series that's been running for quite some time and usually focuses on action combat. You're probably familiar with Tales of Symphonia for the GameCube, or maybe the newest game, Tales of Arise, both of which were pretty big deals when they initially launched. I've been a pretty big fan of these games since Symphonia came out when I was really young, and I've been playing most of them as they come out over the years. Tales of Symphonia in specific might be my favorite game ever made. These games are known for having really fun casts of characters with an emphasis on interpersonal conversations through things they call skits, but the thing that drew me to the series in the first place was the emphasis on action combat and the way that you combo regular attacks with special attacks known as arts. They're fun, light RPGs that often have surprisingly heartfelt stories and some really memorable characters. But as much as I've enjoyed playing these games, I've really come to realize that the people running Tales of just don't know what to do with it, or at least are woefully underprepared. There have been numerous opportunities for this series that I think has a really solid number of entries under its belt to make it into the global spotlight and become one of the main big JRPG franchises. But for one reason or another, Namco consistently drops the ball here. And so today I just want to make this video and see if there's anybody else out there that feels like I do about this, where there's this weird sense of disappointment that keeps happening with one of the most underappreciated JRPG franchises. So I started feeling this way with Tales of Arise back in 2021, where it finally felt like Tales was getting a huge new game that was really getting things going for the series. It felt like maybe it would finally be recognized as one of the big main JRPGs that were originally popular in Japan, but eventually broke into a global audience. And while I do think that it isn't necessary for these things to be popular everywhere, I feel like it just kind of deserves it at this point. Tales of is one of the few JRPG franchises that still gets games to this day, with the first game, Tales of Fantasia, coming out for the Super Famicom back in the 90s. This is the PS1 version that came out only in Japan. And while Final Fantasy, Persona, Dragon Quest have long since established themselves in the West, I was really surprised to see that despite winning RPG of the Year in a lot of publications, Tales of Arise just didn't catch on to a major mainstream audience. Arise has its issues, that's for sure, but the combat was really great and really defines what I love about these games. But I think that at the end of the day, Bandai Namco just doesn't have faith in Tales of. And for whatever reason, despite being the fastest selling game in Tales of history, it just wasn't enough. Tales of Arise winning RPG of the Year awards wouldn't lead to a new game announcement, and instead they would just go quiet for 2 years. And over those 2 years, they would throw out the occasional costume pack or weapon upgrades or whatever, which is a problem in and of itself. But eventually they would add this weird DLC 2 years later without much fanfare at all. Beyond the Dawn was an extra 10 hours maybe of gameplay, but it mostly reused assets from the original game, and it just felt like a weird budget title. I actually ended up dropping the DLC about 8 hours in, not knowing that I was right at the end of it, and while making this video I just decided to go finish it. It just felt so strange to wait 2 years for Beyond the Dawn, and then it just being this kind of extra side story without really much going on. Similar expansions can take about 2 years to release, like Elden Ring got Erdtree 2 years after, but the amount of content and the way it was presented just felt weirdly budget. Tales of Arise's Beyond the Dawn expansion felt like it was just a little too late to be really eventful, but that's not even to mention the weirdly mishandled Tales of Symphonia port from earlier that year. Tales of Symphonia, one of the series' most popular entries, ended up getting this sort of, again, budget remaster that was actually worse than the PS3 version that came out in 2014. This time, it was stuck with poor performance and badly done upscaling, which wouldn't be patched to an arguably good state for over half of a year. Not to mention, they cut the sequel game Dawn of the New World, which, despite negative opinions from fans, was included in the PS3 version. So from 2021 to 2023, I felt like they had managed to get me so excited for what was to be next for Tales of, and then somehow squandered that momentum completely in just 2 years. Another 2 years after that, 2025 was to bring us the 30th anniversary of Tales of, and the announcement that we'd be seeing a bunch of classic entries from the series get remastered for modern platforms. This was really exciting to hear, especially as a North American fan, but I was cautiously optimistic because of the Tales of Symphonia port. If you weren't aware, there are a bunch of unreleased Tales of games from the PS2 and before that either haven't been released in years or never came here at all. This is including some of the series' best, like Tales of the Abyss, which hasn't been available since a 3DS port in 2011. Not to mention some of the really cool 2.5D games on PS2, like Tales of Destiny. This seemed like a perfect opportunity to bring back the older games without much effort at all. I figured they would slap them in an emulator, drop them for $30 on the online stores, and then profit every couple of months, and I would have been happy with that. But it turned out to be a little bit less exciting than I expected. The first of these ports was Grace's F, which was a Wii entry that was ported to the PS3 in 2010 and 2012 in English-speaking countries. The port is solid, but relatively standard, with some quality of life stuff. I would argue it was a bit overpriced, but it was a good effort all around as far as I'm concerned. Grace's F is a good game, but it isn't like a massive entry to port, and while it has its fans and I'm happy I got a copy when it came out, I was kind of just looking forward to the next one. That brings us to today, where we have a new port of Tales of Xillia, which just came out this past week for modern platforms. But yet again, it seems to have trouble. I decided to play it safe and wait to pick up this one, and I'm kind of glad I did because it seems like the Switch version, which would have been the one I get, is worse in a lot of ways than the original PS3 version. I can't personally verify these things, but one look online shows that there are audio issues, control input issues, and a number of graphical problems, as well as a 30 FPS cap on the Switch version. Physical copies of the Xbox version were also cancelled last minute a week before launch. It's just a big mess. To be fair, from what I see, this remaster isn't nearly as bad as Symphonia's was, but I think even if it went perfectly, there are some issues that I take with them going for Tales of Xillia right after Grace's. Tales of Xillia is a solid standalone game, but it had a sequel released on the PS3 as well, which was held off by Bandai Namco to be sold off later this year. While in 2014, Tales of Symphonia 1 and 2 were included together as a single package, now in 2025, Xillia gets split up in two, seemingly so they can double dip on the core fanbase. I haven't played Xillia 2, so I can't really argue if this is really worth it in the long run, but I think that it wouldn't be a stretch to say that they're just really trying to get fans to bite. I thought about buying it myself, to be fair. I probably will pick up Xillia eventually if it does get patched. I like these games and I want to support them and play them on my new consoles, but if they're gonna go 50-50 on good ports, it's not really a good sign of respect for the fans. We just shouldn't be in a place where the PS3 version of a game is still the best way to play it. I still have all of these original games anyway, it's not a big deal if I can't play them on my Switch or whatever. But it's not just for me, it's also for people that are just getting into the series now. I can't expect people to go and buy a PlayStation 3 just to play a game that should be on their platform. I understand there's a certain level of difficulty that comes with bringing PlayStation 3 games to modern platforms, but if you've been keeping track, we've also only seen ports of games that were released on PS3. Tales of Symphonia, Vesperia, Grace's F, Xillia 1 and 2 were all playable on PS3, and there's currently no confirmation that anything before then will be brought over. And that leaves out about half of all the mainline games just being completely unplayable for modern audiences. Porting these games is probably a little bit more complicated because they're not on HD platforms, but I think it's all just showing that Bandai Namco is unwilling or incapable of providing the resources that this IP needs. From what I understand, after Xillia 2, we're supposed to get 2 more remasters in this project for the 30th anniversary, and there are 2 PS3 games left, Tales of Berseria and Tales of Xillia. Tales of Xillia and Berseria were both available on PS3, but they're also on PS4, which makes it even less of a concern. Based on what they're doing with these remasters, I think these 2 are unfortunately the perfect candidates, and they just probably want to get them on Switch so that they can resell them. I'm not sure what the reputation of Dawn of the New World is in Japan, but I feel like at least for us in North America, it's not received very well, and so they probably don't want to invest the resources in porting that one. I didn't mention the Vesperia port that came out in like 2019, I believe, so that PS3 version is already off the table. That really does just leave Xillia and Berseria unless they, for some reason, do Xillia and a PS2 game. I'm pretty sure it's going to be these 2, but I'm hoping I'm wrong about it. I think if you follow Tales of long enough, it's just obvious that the higher-ups at Bamco don't really want to funnel money into these games, even though they might be able to find an audience if they did so. They tried to do a big new entry with Arise, and they tried to do a consistent wave of ports to get more momentum as well, but from what I understand, it just seems that they don't have the budget to really do both. I could be completely wrong here, but I wouldn't expect to see any new games announced in this series until the end of the 30th anniversary, and I also won't expect anything other than a PS3 game to get ported. Which is really disappointing because there are some great classic Tales of games that deserve a little bit of time in the sun. At least from my point of view, it feels like the core fanbase of the Tales of series is sort of just buying whatever new game comes out because they think that maybe that'll convince them to make new ones or better ports. It's hard to recommend a series that has really only had one game in almost a decade, but if you're good with a bit of dated gameplay, the older ones are worth a look. If you are interested, Tales of Arise is a really great starting point in my opinion, as it's the most modern feeling game in the series, but I would also look into Tales of Vesperia, Tales of Berseria, and if you're okay with something more retro, Symphonia, and then if you're willing to go further back, go for Fantasia as the original, or Eternia. There also have been a bunch of mobile games that they release pretty consistently. I don't really like those sorts of things, and I don't go to this series for those. If you like them, I guess that's fine. I don't know anything about them. I also think it's worth saying that you can't blame the people that actually make these games. It's purely business that's getting in the way. I have a feeling that the teams porting the games over are being given really small budgets and tight deadlines to get these games working on a whole bunch of different platforms. From the small snippets that I see of the team that's working on Tales of still, it's pretty obvious that they have a lot of passion for these things, and I think it's safe to say that if the Arise team had a shot to make a new game, they would absolutely do it. Who knows, maybe they're working on some crazy new project that's right around the corner. I'd also be very happy if this video aged poorly. If somehow they turn things around and every port from here on out is perfectly handled, with good quality of life features and minimal bugs, I'd be more than happy. If they could get at least one PS2 game ported to a modern platform, that would be fantastic to see as well. Maybe one day we'll get a new game in the series, but for now it's pretty dark. The Tales of series is still pretty niche, but I don't think it needs to be. They've been putting out consistently good games for years that sometimes just get held back by their scope and budget, and I just want them to get some recognition. I finished that Arise DLC, and I was thinking about how fun the combat is in that game, and I just want to see more of that stuff. There are so many games in this series, and they're all pretty good in their own way. It's just so weird that they just aren't given the chance to really go somewhere. I hope you enjoyed my little ramble here. I know it might come across as a little complainy, and that's not really what I'm trying to do. I just want things that I like to find their audience and to be supported. If you're a fan of Tales of, I'd love to see what your thoughts are on all of this stuff. If you felt like I have in the last few years about the series. I'm aware that not everyone was a fan of Tales of Arise's direction as much as I did like it, but I felt like it was at least a step in the right direction. This has just been a collection of loose thoughts that I've had on this series over the years. and I hope you didn't mind me just spilling my thoughts out here. The next video will be back to the usual retro stuff, and I hope to see you there.